Hello and welcome to the video tutorial series on RetroERS. My name is Brian and I'm with DataVault Solutions. Today we will install and configure RetroERS on a Windows 2008 R2 standard server with Microsoft SQL 2012 and advanced features including reporting services. Let's go ahead and get started. I have my installation package here, the ERSCU, the configuration utility, which we'll be installing on the SQL server. Now I've already preloaded Microsoft SQL Server and the reporting services on the system. So I have my database and I've extracted some information to make this install a little bit easier. The name of the server followed by the instance, the Microsoft SQL Server instance, and also the reporting services web service URL and report manager URLs. I've gone ahead and captured those in a text file down at the bottom. So we'll go ahead and run the setup here. And go through the setup. We accept the end user license agreement. And we're going to accept the default installation location and allow everyone to use the application. Click Next. And then close. Then we go over to our Start button and All Programs. And then launch the RetroERS configuration tool. The tool gives us the ability to go through the installation configuration in a systematic method. So steps 1 through 7, 7 being optional. Step number 1, we're going to connect to the SQL Server. And during this step, it's also going to open up the firewall to allow for traffic from the server for reporting services and also SQL browser services. So we're going to go ahead and allow that. And now it's asking for our SQL instance. So like I said, I already have this information handy, so we'll go ahead and copy this and paste it in here. And we have the option now to connect to the SQL Server utilizing either Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication. Now when we installed SQL, we told it to go in mixed mode, so that allows for both options. So in this particular case, I may not know the SQL Server, any SQL Server account, so we're going to use Windows authentication. We can go ahead and test that, and it was successful. Hit OK, and then OK. Now we're going to secure the application account. Now here's where it's going to actually create a SQL account to be utilized by the application. This account is called RetroERS user. So we'll go ahead and type in a password here. Make sure you remember what this password is. And also keep it private. Now we're going to initiate the database install. This will utilize those credentials, the Windows authentication and the SQL instance, and connect to the server and create the actual database. Proceed to step 4. Here we will enumerate this information out just by clicking on the 3 dots and select our database mail profile and email operator. Note with SQL Express Edition does not come with the tools to allow for database mail, so those options are not available. SQL reporting. This does require a email address. In this particular case, I'm just going to put in a bogus address. And then I'm going to, down here, reporting manager URL. It's just that this may vary for everyone. The easiest way to find that is to open up your reporting services, like I said, and go to the web services URL and the reporting manager URL, and then just capture those. In this particular case, we have 2 options, a fully qualified down here and also up here as an BIOS for internal use. And you can get to that just by clicking on those links, and it will launch the reporting services, and then I can just capture that URL. So I have those here. Note we also give you the format that needs to be entered in, just in case you're confused as to what goes in each space. Down below, we have a default date window in number of days that the reports would be published. And this typically can be anything from 1 day to 30 days, 100 days, whatever you would typically want to see. In our particular instance, I'm going to go ahead and set this to 5 days. We go on to our backup set users. Now, in order for the reporting services to authenticate a user that logs in and tie that to the backup sets that you want that user to see, we have the options to either use local machine authentication or Active Directory or other ERS manager. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. Now we're going to complete the database install. Here we go, complete. And then step number 6 is going to install the reports into the reporting server. Step number 6 is only valid if you have SQL 2008 R2 or higher. It is not available in SQL Server 2008 or earlier. If you have that, then you will need to manually install those reports. We're going to go ahead and type in the same password that we utilized when we created this RetroERS user account. And then hit continue. And we're going to go down here and report server home. See, we have no data sources and no reports. Once this completes, we'll just refresh that page. Okay, we are complete. And then I'm going to go over here and refresh the page. Now we have our sources, which points to the database, and also our reports. Now I'm going to switch this to tile view. And we have our 4 reports in there. And then we can launch the ERS Manager, which is an optional step. And note that there is nothing in the boxes. They are not populated yet. And we're going to go ahead and exit this. And close. Now, if we need to, we can go ahead and reopen this, and it's going to dump us right into the manager section. Now, earlier we specified local security or no security for the group, so we're going to go back into the application settings. We're going to actually change that. We're going to say, let's use Active Directory, because I've already gone into Active Directory and I've created a security group, RetroERS group, and have populated it with a few members. So over here, I'm going to tell it to utilize Active Directory. I'll enumerate my domain and my AD server, and then I'm going to pick that group from the list, RetroERS group, hit OK, and then restart the manager. Now if I go back down to this list, we'll see that we have users. But again, we have no backup set information yet because we have not set up the ERS manager on one of the Retrospect servers. Well, that completes installation of the RetroERS configuration manager. Hope you join us for the installation of the ERS manager on the Retrospect servers.